Alright, and welcome back to Zero Cool Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a review of a game called Phantom of Inferno.
マスターの自慢の愛のままに終わらせてくれるって。少しは手応えあった。
一番手強い敵だった。
Now, this is one of the only visual novels that I own. It's more like a which way book. There are several ways to end this story, but there's only one way to make the story go as long as possible. And it requires you to make a lot of correct decisions along the way. Even one wrong decision will end the game very quickly, or, relative to your placement within the story itself. It doesn't matter what your personal morals, values, understandings are. Using those to answer these questions will always give you a bad end. The game has very specific answers it wants you to give, and until you learn those answers, you will not progress. Period. It's like a which way book. If you've ever read a which way book, and I've read some pretty extensive ones. I've read which way books that were 1,500 pages long. When I was a kid, I started with which way books that were, 100 to 200 pages. Some of them maybe 300 pages. And as I got older, I started finding which way books that were entire novels, 3,000 and 4,000 pages. The difficult part for any of those books was trying to get the entire story, not finding an end. It was easy to end the story, just make a wrong decision. The hard part is making the correct decisions repeatedly throughout the book so that you could get the whole story that was contained within the book. And the same thing with this visual novel. It's not about whether you agree with the answers or not. It's whether or not the answers you gave will allow you to continue the novel. So, it's a different way of thinking, I guess, is a way of putting that. So, how does this particular novel begin? Well, it starts out with you waking up in a warehouse. You have no idea who you are, what your name is. You have no memory of your family, your past life, what you are doing, why you're here, nothing. And this is a direct result of Master Sife's work. He injected you with a chemical that quite literally erases your mind. And you are the second subject that his work was successful on. The first subject is named In, which is 1, and you are named Y, which is 2. Who would have guessed, right? In, which is your teacher, is also known as Phantom. and that name is directly related to her earned position within Inferno. Inferno is the organization that you work for, whether you like it or not. And In, your teacher, gained the name Inferno. Is that right? No, Phantom. Sorry. Gained the name Phantom because she is the #1 assassin within the organization. Your first task set out by you, by Master Scythe, is to defend yourself against In, who's been told to take it easy on you. And you need to essentially disarm a trained assassin and put yourself in a position of authority over her with the knife that she currently holds. You have no weapon. After pleading for your life, dodging her attacks, and eventually realizing you don't have a choice, you take her down, disarm her, and ask if it is necessary for you to kill her. You're told that's not necessary. You passed the initial training session, and beginning tomorrow, you will start a regiment of training under your supervisor, which is In, R1. And that's what you do for quite a while. You do push-ups, set-ups, pull-ups, a lot of calisthenics. You run around the factory over and over. And by the end of the day, you are so worn out that you simply pass out. After several months of this training regiment, you are handed a gun, and you're asked to try to hit a set of bricks from a relatively close position. You're able to shoot 3 bricks with 6 bullets. You think that's pretty decent until your trainer shoots 6 bricks with 6 bullets in less than 2 seconds. And she explains to you that she's going to teach you how to do the same thing. And over time, you eventually do get there. Not quite as fast as she is, but you're able to do it in less than 3 seconds, which is all that she required of you for this first level of training with weapons. The next level of training that you go through is with heavier caliber weapons. Now, you do have the choice here of going with either heavier caliber weapons or weapons that carry more bullets. I personally chose heavier caliber weapons just because that seemed to make sense. You are a male, she's a female. Her ability to absorb the shockwave of heavier caliber weapons would be limited, and your thinking on this is that because you're male, you'll be able to handle the higher caliber weaponry, while she will be able to handle the lower caliber weaponry with more bullets. And eventually she starts training you within the factory with moving targets. The factory is dark. Of course, the targets are moving, and you have a heavier caliber weapon. It comes with its own level of difficulty. But before that, you're also visited by a woman that you also met on the first night that you remember anything. And she shows up on the same day that your trainer has to go out on a job. And she basically introduces herself as to being your supervisor and the supervisor of Master Scythe, which is the person who trained Ian, and explains to you that you're part of a criminal organization. You're being trained to be an assassin, and they have high hopes for you being able to be as effective as their number one assassin. She's also the same person that explains to you why Ian has the name Inferno itself. So a lot of things start coming together for you, and while you're training with moving targets, you come to the realization that you're going to be required to kill somebody one day, and you don't know whether or not you'll be able to do that without having any types of feelings toward it. And Ian explains to you that that's why you're being trained, so that you can commence these types of operations and take people out without having any type of remorse or feelings toward doing so. The harder you train, the more you focus, the easier it becomes. And that's basically where your training is at currently. So eventually his training progressed to the point where he was ready to take on his first assignment. Now his first assignment was given to him at the factory where he was accustomed to. He had already chosen a weapon for this assignment without even realizing that it was one. And he was asked to kill a military man who had gone against the Inferno's wishes and started selling weapons to other people besides them. So they gave the target 10 minutes to figure out what he wanted to do, told him that there was a weapons shed inside the factory itself, as well as where it could be found, and then told you, or one, no, you're two, yeah, Zwei, two, to hunt him down and kill him. And initially, you try to get out of it. Ein pulls a gun on you and basically tells you you don't have a choice. You'll either do it or die, and she does it for you after you're dead. So you take off into the factory, and you start thinking about what the other man would be doing. You go through a few scenarios until you come to the conclusion that he must be hiding behind the broken down fork truck. Now you're carrying a Desert Eagle. It's a 50 caliber weapon, has one heck of a kick and a lot of impact. So once you've decided where he is, even though you couldn't see him, you open up fire onto the forklift itself. Eventually the forklift does fall over from the repeated impacts, and the forklift crushes the man that you were asked to hunt down and kill. After which, of course, you have some remorse, regrets, thoughts, pain, anguish, these sorts of things. And number one comes up behind you and asks you if you want it to end. You tell her yes, and she pulls the trigger. There's no bullets in the gun though, so it's just a dry click. After that, you continue your training, and you take on several more cases, and eventually you end up going out of state to hunt down a gentleman in Dallas, Texas. In the process of doing this, you masquerade as a young couple shopping in a shopping mall. You locate your target, figure out where he will be exiting the building, and you choose another exit and come out from the side. As soon as you see your target and the vehicle that he'll be going into, you commence your attack. Number one goes after the driver of the car, killing them, while you take out the guards of the mafia member that you're trying to kill. As soon as all the immediate guards drop, number one is able to kill the target themselves, and you take off in a car driven by Master Scythe. After which you return to LA and you begin to think about the different life that you have now compared to the one that you were living in the middle of the desert. And there's not much difference other than the types of stimulation that can be found between the two places. You have a very basic outlook on life and what that really means. Eventually, number one shows up and thinks about how quickly you have progressed in your training and how you've been able to get close to her level in a very short amount of time compared to how long it took her to get to where she is now. If you haven't figured it out yet, this story is a little odd. It's not your typical dating simulator or even your typical visual novel. Not that they don't have visual novels out there that are a bit twisted and dark. They certainly do, and this is one of them. And this was one of the few that I was able to locate a long time ago. I don't remember exactly when this was released. Let me take a look real quick. My eyes are horrible. Give me just a second here. Looks like 2001. That sounds about right. And I probably bought this in maybe 2003, 2004. A couple of years after it was released. And even then it wasn't cheap. I think I paid $20 for it. The costs on these type of games, for whatever reason, just do not go down really, even over time. So, while I did see a few interesting titles, this one caught my eye because it was, the presentation for it was so much different than the rest. It wasn't your high school drama or, you know, twisted, dark, alternate dimension type thing. It was a story about assassins and how they're trained, and it goes into detail about what they think, when they think it, how they think it, things of that effect. And it also kind of gives you an idea of the type of people that are around them. And trust me when I tell you, this is a pretty twisted, dark story all the way through it. Even when these two are trying to be good, they can't help but consider all the possibilities, and even some of the worst possibilities in that respect are open for discussion and may be very well played out. So, yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent first time look at visual novels. It's not really the type of thing that I truly enjoyed, but I didn't hate it. And several years later, probably a decade later, I did pick up another one. And it's completely different. It's like the opposite of what this is. And that was deliberate, because I wanted to have that separation, that difference. I wanted to see from something that was relatively obscure, and it still is obscure today, to something that's well received and a lot of people like in the realm of visual novels. I'll get to it eventually, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this story is actually quite long. I think it took me, once I'd figured out what you're doing, there's a lot of ways to end this game very quickly and all the way through it just by making one wrong decision. But once I figured out how to navigate through it, it's probably a 24, 25 hour story to get through. Alright, so 1 and 2 prepare for their next mission, and they're told that they're going to be a support team for an Inferno operation where they're going to steal a bunch of drugs off of this ship from the Chinese. Just before the mission was to start, though, 2 is told to go to Claudia's house and be her bodyguard for the evening. The reality of it is far from what they were told. In truth, Scythe Master had decided to double-cross Inferno and rob the shipment, which was for Inferno, for his own means. In the process of this happening, 1 ends up getting shot, and she escapes and runs to the factory that was out in the middle of the desert in an effort to hold up there until she can figure out what to do. While all that was occurring, 2 at Claudia's house was given his passport, and when he read the name and wrote his name out, all of his memories of his past life returned to him. And then Claudia told him that he can go have some time to think about what he wants to do. So he, not knowing where to go or what to do, ends up going to the factory out in the middle of the desert. When he arrives, he finds 1 there, injured, and essentially about to pass out. So, in an effort to save her life, he opens up the wound, removes the bullet, sews it up, and then the next morning he tells her that they should both run away because the mission that she had been put on was a lie. Scythe Master had betrayed Inferno, and now the entire organization will be after the both of them. And they try to run away. They make it, pretty far into Nevada, into a town, pretty good sized town. I don't remember the name of it. But while there, Ayn tells him that she's going to go pickpocket some people, and he's to return to that position in 1 hour to pick her up. And while she's doing that, he goes and steals another car so that they won't have any remnants of Inferno on them in that respect, because the car that he was currently driving was one that they owned. In the process of trying to steal the other car, he ends up getting caught by Claudia's bodyguard. And he ends up thrown into a torture chamber where he's tortured for the next 3 days. And while 1 was out pickpocketing people, she noticed that she's being followed, and as she tries to run away, she runs right into Scythe Master, who does kill her pursuer, but then absconds with her. So nothing went to plan at all. None of their ideas came to fruition, and in truth, they were both probably in worse condition and worse off than they were to begin with. But that's kind of how this story is. There's lots of twists and turns through the whole thing. And it does give you some options as you go through it, but for each incorrect answer, you basically come to the end of the story. It's pretty strict about that. And there's only, in truth, one right answer for moving forward. And like I said before, it may not match up with your morals or values or anything else that you can think of that's based on any form of right and wrong. It's based on what the writers had decided you should choose if you want to move forward in the story. Alright, so this is where the story starts to get really twisted. You see, one had been shot by two, and he thought he killed her. But he couldn't, completely discount the fact that Master Scythe carried her body away on the boat with him. And later on, Claudia, a member of Inferno, set up a drug deal with the Japanese mafia where they were going to exchange cocaine for money. But Master Scythe had another name, which was Giuseppe, and he had traveled to Japan after being attacked and barely getting away with his life, and what two thought was a dead person with him. And needless to say, Master Scythe was not done with making trouble for Inferno. You see, the Japanese used who they knew as Giuseppe, or otherwise known as Master Scythe, to find vehicles for them, to find the guns for them, and as a result, he knew exactly where the drug deal was going to be going down. And he sent one there to kill all of the Japanese, which she did do. And because it happened in an area of town that should have been controlled by the local gangs, which were controlled by one of the members of Inferno, it implicated him in the attack. Mainly because they weren't able to find out who the attacker was. And the only person who, as far as Inferno was concerned, knew where the deal was going to be going down was the Inferno members. They had no idea that Master Scythe was involved at all. So Claudia had to watch the remaining Japanese, the remaining three men, and after several days of watching them, he became careless, and one of the men had left a gambling table to go downstairs to a bar, and while he wasn't watching what this man was doing, he was picked up by a female, and they went back to his room. Well, this female that picked him up was one, and when she got him back to the room, she slit his throat, further making things more difficult for Inferno, especially since he was the one who was supposed to be protecting these guys. He went up to the room, he found the dead body, and he heard the elevator. And as he exited, he convinced himself that he was hallucinating when he saw one in the elevator, which is why he hesitated to shoot her. He had the opportunity, but he froze. And then afterwards, he realized that if she was alive, she would be working with Master Scythe, and she would be absolutely willing to do anything that he had asked her to. But rather than going down those paths, he convinced himself that he simply hallucinated her and it was somebody else. He hadn't slept for days. That has to be it. And while he's going through all of this, the Japanese were calling Master Scythe to get more guns, more cars, and more connections in San Francisco, basically setting themselves up to have more of their men killed without realizing it. Alright, so he picked up this young girl that he thought would have some information on who the assassin was that killed the Japanese and stole the money. And of course it was her that actually stole the money, and she hired him to help her. Well, he told Inferno that she was a genius in the art of assassination. Not even knowing whether or not that was true, but it was the only lie he could come up with that would protect her for now. And he did take her out to the factory to learn how to shoot, and she was a natural at shooting. She learned how to quick fire a gun within a single day of practice. So he decided that the only way that he was going to be able to continue to help her was to actually have her around and kind of teach her the job that he did. So he started to teach her how to be a sniper and, you know, what's necessary as far as how you view the world to be an assassin. And she picked things up very quickly. She knew how to take guns apart and put them back together, clean them, oil them. She understood what to look for when trying to find a place to shoot from when you're being a sniper. She instinctively understood what kind of angles you want to be at, and too high or too low is a bad position to be in. So she was able to learn very quickly what took him a year and a half to learn. So it wasn't exactly as if he had lied to Inferno in that respect of what she was capable of. But eventually, things came undone. Because Scythe, or Giuseppe, wanted him dead, he took pictures of him when he was in the room investigating the murder of the Yakuza at the gambling hotel. And he took pictures of him when he sniped one of Inferno's men from the roof that was trying to kill Claudia. And the pictures that they took implicated him as being the person who had actually killed the Yakuza, and being the person who shot at the window, which to their eyes signaled Claudia to kill the other member of Inferno. And when he went to confront her about all of this, she admitted that it was her doing that had the Yakuza rob Inferno over a year ago at the harbor where one was first injured and they tried to escape. But as far as the rest of it, she just admitted to it without even realizing what she was admitting to. And neither did she care. So when he realized that he was going to be targeted by Inferno, he ran back to his apartment. And he saw a vehicle in front of the apartment. and as he started to run toward it, the apartment itself exploded. So in his anger, he killed the Bloodies member, the gang members that did that, because he thought that they killed the young girl. In truth, she was out at the time, and she had hid after the explosion, and the person who found her was Scythe, or Giuseppe, as a direct result of the actions that two made in not looking for her, or in the fact that he went after the Bloodies, assuming that she was dead. So a lot of issues, to say the least. But at this point, he was on a rampage, not only to sort out his own pain, but to prevent Inferno from taking any further action against him. So he had to figure out exactly what it was he needed to do at this point to save himself and get away from this situation. So when 3 figured out that 1 and 2 were trying to leave the country to run away, she kind of went a little crazy. She ended up leaving the motel they were staying at. She kidnapped the girl that 2 was dating, and there were a lot of reasons for that, mainly to hurt him. And she had threatened 1 with her life. Both of them had pointed guns at each other's heads. And even though 2 tried to defuse the situation, he knew that there was a lot of hatred in 3. Hatred for him leaving her, even though he truly thought she was dead. Her hatred over the life she had been put through in the last 2 years as a result of running into Scythe Master, who absolutely manipulated her into being the person that she is by forcing her to do things that, it's not that she didn't want to do it, it's that she didn't have to. And the only reason that she had to was because if she didn't, Inferno would have killed her. So she became a killer herself. In fact, their best assassin that they had. And after kidnapping the girl, when one of the members of Inferno tried to stop her but refused to shoot her, she shot, in truth, a friend of hers who was trying to talk her down. Shot her in the process of trying to talk her down. And she had told her that if she continued this, that there would be no end to the depths in which she would sink. So she locked this girl up in a burned out building for 3 days, waiting for her to lose her mind, which she never did. And when she tried to talk to her and she was hearing things she didn't want to hear, she started to beat on her. And beat on her hard and repeatedly. And continued to beat on her until she finally went limp and couldn't take the pain anymore. And that's when she realized that she had become the thing that she hated so much. She had turned into the exact thing that she had been running away from. The reason why she was living with a prostitute. When the Yakuza killed that prostitute and she ran into 2. And that hurt her more than anything else. her realization that not only had she never dealt with the problems that she had to endure, but she had literally become the problem that she had endured. She had been running away from it for so long that she couldn't recognize what she was turning into as a result. She couldn't see the pain that she was causing to others. All she saw was her hatred and anger toward everyone around her for all the things that had happened to her. And when she really started to think about it and really started to reflect on it, there was nothing she could do to truly apologize for what she had done. But at least she realized what she had become, and she hated it. Now at this point, one was actively looking for her to try to save the girl's life that she had kidnapped. Two was lying low until he realized that the two of them would kill each other to try to save him. And that's never what he wanted from either of them. So he finally decided to take action. Took him 2 days, almost 3. But he finally realized he had to do something. Otherwise he was going to lose everyone. Not only 2 and 3, but the girl he was dating as well. Because if both of them died, no one would know where she was, and no one would be able to save her. And he wasn't confident that he would be able to find her. So he started to track one's movements. He knew that he could track what she had done and what she had been doing, and he'd be able to at least track her down to where she was at the moment. He didn't know what he would find once he got there, but he knew that he would at least be able to find her. And while all this is going on, Scythe brought in a crack team of 5 other girls that he had been training to be assassins as well. And he had learned a lot over the years on how to do that between the 3 that he had already trained. So he was confident that this team of assassins should be able to take care of any problem that was occurring, including the elimination of whoever survived this 3-way battle between 1, 2, and 3. And he really didn't care who survived as long as his new team came out on top. So this is a story that doesn't really have a good end. And trust me, I tried. You can either save Cal, or you can save In. You can't save both of them. If you try to save In, you kill Cal. If you try to save Cal, In dies trying to save the both of you. Yeah, it's a sad story no matter how you look at it. And I guess if you were to say the best ending would probably be the one with In, because at least you try to escape from the world that you'd been trapped within. Where with Cal, you end up continuing to kill people until the day you die. I don't know which is the best story. They're both pretty sad when you think about it. But I would say that the one with In is a little better. Not much, but a little bit. Because when you kill Cal, you realize that she had no intention of killing you. She missed on purpose. There was no way that she could miss at that range, and you knew that. She was faster at drawing. She shot first. If anything, you both should have died at the same time. But you didn't. And then the other way around, you jump between In and Cal viciously fighting each other to the point that when you jump between the two, you end up getting hit in the process, which at least gets the two of them to come back to their senses long enough to realize that you never wanted that for either of them. And then In tells, Cal to take you out of there and dress the wound and save, you. And she does. And then she has to fight off the people that Scythe had created and then kill Scythe himself. And you end up, like I said, going out and continuing to kill people. Where the other way, you still end up fighting off the people that Scythe had created. And Scythe himself. And then you run off somewhere to try to live a life for the two of you without any more of this killing and insanity and all the not so good things. With the In route, it's In and the Japanese Yakuza that save the girl that you were dating. With the Cal route, you actually save the girl that you were dating, and then the Yakuza show up later to take her out of the area. So, with the Cal route, you learn more about her in that respect. There is a route for her as well, where you give up on both In and Cal. But I didn't like that ending. I thought that was a cop-out, kind of like the rest of the endings in this game. It's more of a cop-out than any type of actual ending. But regardless, that's how it ends. And if this sounds like something you might enjoy playing, I certainly suggest it. It's got some good writing in it. It's got some good moments in it. It surprised me for what I thought it would be. It went above and beyond what it needed to in order to.
だが隣のキャルはまるで気にならないのか、のんきに寝息を立てている。とはいえ、この振動もあと数十分の辛抱だった。次のサンタマデリアで旅は終わる。
着くぞ、そろそろ。
何やら意味の取れないことをうなりながら大きくあくびをするキャル。
まったく仕事の前によく居眠りなんてできるもんだ。どういう神経してるんだか。準備はいいのか？
うん、大丈夫。んで、敵さんって何人だっけ？
目についたやつは全員だ。サンタマデリアで今日道端をうろついてる堅気はいないさ。
じゃあおまわりが出てきたら？
そいつらもサンチェスの親衛隊だ。
やれやれ。弾足りるかな。
Pull some kind of feeling and emotion out of people. So I'll call that my rant for the day. I hope that you enjoy the rest of yours. If you could hit the like, subscribe, rumble, follow buttons, all that does help. And I'll talk to you later.